Hey everyone, what up? Matt Kaiser here. Now you guys probably know that I'm into JRPGs a lot, but what you may not know is that I'm also an avid fan of fighting games. Not too much the competitive scene to the point that I'm very hardcore into them, but more so casual in the things like, say, for example, I enjoy relatively playing games like, say, Soul Calibur 6, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Brawl, as well as even Granblue Fantasy vs. Rising, and even Persona 4 Arena, just for a nice casual fun beat 'em up sense. But with that also speaking, I noticed that some JRPGs do have some occasional fighting games in the mix, with things like the Dissidia Final Fantasy games, as well as Persona 4 Arena and Arena Ultimax, and the aforementioned Granblue Fantasy vs. and Rising. And that got me thinking, what other JRPG series could really use a fighting game, as you can be able to translate some of the games from those series into a fighting game moveset? So, with the help of other amazing content creators, I decided to collab a list of 5 JRPG series that we think definitely deserves a fighting game. But before we begin, if you like what you're seeing, then by all means, like the video, click the subscribe button if you're new, and hit that bell notification icon if you want more lists like this down the road. Not only that, but I'm currently in the middle of playing Persona 5 Royal, as you can see from this tweet here, and hopefully before this year ends, I'll be able to deliver my long-awaited 750 subscribers special, so please do look forward to that if you can. And with that said, let's get back to the video, and without further ado, I'm going to transition to some of my amazing friends to show their picks of JRPGs that deserve a fighting game.
Hi everybody!
Thanks for having me on, Kaiser. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a JRPG and fighting game content creator. I also am kind of known for being a Falcom and SNK guy. So when Kaiser told me about this collab, I got to thinking, what Falcom game series needs a fighting game spin-off? Trails of Cold Steel was the obvious choice, simply because there was a fighting game at one point from Falcom that involved Trails and Ys. But that game wasn't exactly a traditional fighter. That's something Falcom has no experience with to my knowledge.
Tell me when I'm telling lies!
So they clearly have to subcontract another company to do it. Then I thought, oh hey, SNK would be a perfect fit, seeing as they make traditional fighters and have extensive experience with weapons-based ones, thanks to them developing Samurai Showdown and the Last Blade franchises. So my idea is a Falcom and SNK team up to make a Trails fighting game in the same vein as Sam Show. I bet most of you are wondering why I'm singling out Trails of Cold Steel though for this new game. Well, it's simple really. It comes down to the fact fighting games need decent sized rosters. Trails of Cold Steel and its subsequent sequels have the biggest roster of characters to pick from that are playable. So that makes things easy. Just including Class 7 from the first game, you have 12 characters to pick from. In Cold Steel 3 and 4, you have an additional 5 characters just from new Class 7, which puts you at 17 fighters, admittedly on the lighter side. But you could include some of the guest characters from the Erebonian arc, or go the whole hog and include everyone in the Reverie cast. The sweet spot for a fighting game roster is between 20 and 40 characters, though companies like Arc System Works make smaller rosters work for them. So, I said earlier, the game would play a lot like Sam Show. How does that play exactly? It's very different from your traditional 2D fighting game, mostly because one mistake and you're going to die pretty much. It's a very brutal and punishing fighting game where fundamentals are key. I would say keep that element, but tone it down a lot. Also, I'd make it so every character could zone a little bit thanks to the use of arts. Though for the more physical characters like Laura, I'd make it so their arts buff their damage or buff their defense a little bit. Maybe I'll get the chance to expand on my idea further one day.
Finally!
I'm on a time limit for this video, so I thought I'd get my idea out there as quickly as possible and explain it as best I can.
And that's all I got to say about that!
Thanks again for having me on, Mad Kaiser. I can't wait to see what the others came up with. If you liked my entry, come and check my channel out. Anyways, until next time, keep blazing that trail.
If we're going to talk about JRPGs that deserve a fighting game spin-off, the one that immediately comes to mind for me is the Tales series by Bandai Namco. Now, one did exist on the PSP in Japan called Tales of Versus, but that never got localized here for English, and it was played more akin to, say, Dissidia Final Fantasy or even a Super Smash Bros. Now, if they were to make a new one, that would be cool, but I feel it should play to Bandai Namco's strengths, which are Soul Calibur and Tekken. If they were to do a Tales fighting game, it should be an amalgamation of those two, since you have characters that use weapons, or even those that use their fists for melee combat. And I think it'd be cool to see characters from these games throw down. I mean, I'd love to see Velvet go one-on-one with, say, Milia, and even having the chance to play as, say, Yuri, and have him go up against Luke. That would also be one hell of a combination. With that, it can also play to the strengths of what has been done with, say, Tekken, which is include an excellent story mode and a slew of online modes. I feel like this needs to be done, and it's one way to celebrate the Tales franchise history. And they could also do crossovers. I would personally love to see Adol here. Who would be with me on that? But if we're talking, again, like I said, a franchise that deserves a fighting game spin-off, Tales is the one that immediately comes to the list. And if it happens, you can count me in day one for that.
Be honest with yourself. You knew I was going to be in this video. And honestly, to your surprise, the JRPG I'm going to say is not The World Ends With You. Although it definitely should get one too. It's going to be Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts, I feel like, deserves a fighting game more than anything ever. And especially because what I can see it being is an arena fighter. An arena fighter is something that we really don't have a lot of in the fighting game genre, or in the fighting game community as a whole, really. We have some really bad ones, you know, the Shonen Jump ones. But I think Kingdom Hearts could be a great one. I think Kingdom Hearts could be like the next step up from Dissidia, be a little bit more fluid and a little bit more beginner friendly, I think. Honestly, I really like the idea of Kingdom Hearts being a fighting game just because everybody in that game has a cool weapon. You got keys, you got chakrams, you got a scythe, you got somebody that uses a shield. Like, what in the world? Like, we have so many different combos and possibilities. It is honestly insane. And I really want that to be something that they actually use later, because I think Disney would do a great job of supporting it like they're doing with Speedstorm right now. And they could give a lot to the fighting game community that I think a lot of people have not really considered. Kind of like the Smash Bros effect, but a little bit more healthy, I think. Anyways, that's all I got for you. Back to you, Matt Kaiser.
So first and foremost, I want to give a big shout out to my main man, Matt Kaiser. And as for me, a JRPG that I would love to see turned into a potential fighting game would absolutely be Legend of Legaia for the PS1 system. And fun fact, there's actually a mini game in Legend of Legaia that somewhat allows you to simulate what an actual 1v1 3D fighting game in Legaia would actually be like. It's more of a rock paper scissors match, but it still gives you a gist that this game could translate very well into beating a fighting game. Now, one of the primary reasons that I love this game as a fighting game franchise is because this JRPG's battle system already uses certain limbs and different techniques and input, sort of like a Street Fighter or Tekken input command list to do the certain attacks and the turn-based attacks. So this game was already tailor-made for somewhat being a fighter by each character having their own unique and specific inputs. So if there was ever a Legend of Legaia fighting game ever to be made, I believe it would translate so easily because the formula is already there. And I mean, if you take away the turn-based aspect of Legend of Legaia, it is practically a fighting game due to the various inputs and due to the fact that the characters don't even primarily use weapons. They use their fists, their legs, and their different techniques that they learn through martial arts. So for me, I would love to see Legend of Legaia as a fighting game. I think it would absolutely be awesome. Now, unfortunately, there's only 2 games in the series, but there's enough characters in it for at least to build a 10-character roster, in my opinion. But yeah, blast from the past. If you know my channel, you know that I love Legend of Legaia for its battle fighting game sort of roots, and that's my pick for this video.
And thank you for your wonderful picks. They're absolutely amazing, and honestly, hope one day those dreams become reality. That said, let's cap off this video with my pick, and that would actually have to be the Hyperdimensional Neptunia series. as honestly I think that definitely deserves a fighting game. Now in concept, the Hyperdimensional Neptunia series is basically a fictional version of the game industry, having, alternate fictionalized consoles in the form of goddesses and anime waifus, like, on how PlayStation is basically PlayStation, Leanbox is Xbox, as well as, Planet Neptune is basically the Sega Neptune, and obviously Louis is basically Nintendo. And I honestly think with the concept of how lots of those game makers and goddesses fight for supremacy and shares would work in a fighting game sense, given the fact that the series also had some action game spin-offs, like say Neptunia and Sengoku and Kagura having a beat-em up Muso, and recently Sisters vs Sisters and Game Maker Revolution having action RPGs. So having a fighting game where all the characters from the Neptunia series be able to fight for whatever reason, like maybe even have R4 plan to do something that makes them fight or whatever, will be a cool concept. And honestly, you can have your waifu, hijinks, some 4-4 anime humor, and that'll be all perfect. And as for, the characters you get to play as, obviously I would have for base roster would be, the main first makers being, Neptune, Noir, Vert, and Blanc, and the second sisters with obviously having Nepgear, Uni, Ram and Ram, and you can also have some other characters in the mix like the Gold Thirds, like C Sha, B Sha, K Sha, as well as also S Sha, and also have characters like the aforementioned R4, Annoying Death, as well as also Plutia, and also Pishi, as well as obviously also having R4 in the mix. And you can also even have some guest characters like the recent new makers like Jaga, Radio, Pepe, as also obviously having also Adult Neptune in the mix. And honestly, the combat itself could be like a tag 3v3 similar to say BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle or Marvel vs Capcom 3, and you can also even involve transformations in the mix, like them going into the Gods modes, which is like a limit break or super move. And honestly, having also past locations from the series in general would be a cool mix, and also you can have remix tracks of the Neptunia series in general. And honestly, I think that'll be a cool thing, given the fact that the next Neptunia game is a spin-off with the return of Uzume, and it's all about capturing doggos on motorcycles while playing card games.
Card games on motorcycles!
Not really, I'm just kidding. But that would have to be my pick in general. So please, Idea Factory, Compile Hut, whoever you had to work with, make a Neptunia fighting game. I would buy it day one. With that said, I think that wraps up this video. Thanks to amazing, wonderful content creators I got to work with, sharing their picks, and please go follow them and subscribe to their YouTube channels. They're amazing people. And let me know in the comments down below what games you would like to see turned into a fighting game, like what JRPGs do you have in mind. With that said, until then, Mad Kaiser out.